He kōna e purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
We took a break from the series Back to Basics last week to make room for a conversation around the war in Iran. So this week I'm back with another deep dive into different musical universes. And today we're off to Zimbabwe. Welcome to the podcast. This is Here Now with me, Kadambri. Jabulani
Yes.
Moyo.
Yes.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I actually never have said your full name. I've known you for a few years.
I'm shocked that you're using my passport name, my government name. But yeah.
So you grew up in Zimbabwe.
Yes, I did.
You're the son of a pastor.
Yes. Yeah. So interesting journey.
Gospel through and through?
Through and through. I think part of my early life was just encompassed in going to church. It was church on a Monday, church on a Wednesday, church on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday was a Sunday service. So, it was something that, was part of my early life and very important in molding who I am today. Yeah.
For so many of us in the diaspora, the music we grew up immersed in, influenced by, and for some trained in, remains a bedrock to the lives we live now. Whether it's Samba, gospel, or Hindustani classical music, the sounds of our childhood and teenage years trickle into our daily lives today in New Zealand, informing our choices, stirring up memories, and for many, helping actually make new tracks in a new home. Jabulani, mostly known as Jay, is a bassist, and you've probably seen him play in Auckland at Afro jazz gigs, and he also plays Afro beats with Amapiano DJs and producers, but his upbringing is steeped in the sounds of Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, Zim gospel and worship music is a huge deal. I mean, it's a genre in its own right, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think a lot of influences come through from, what's taking place in Southern Africa as well. So it's kind of molded itself to be a standalone genre. Yeah.
What makes it a little bit different to gospel as people might know it generally?
I think, we add a bit of a traditional element to it as well. We have specific Christian denominations that, come from Zimbabwe itself. For instance, the apostolic faith, which we call Mapostori, or led by Johan Masoe as well, which is, very interesting in the way that they've molded their music. It's mainly just vocal and vocal melodies as well. So it stands out as its own genre, so to say.
And it's just harmonics, just vocals,
just
no percussive instruments, no instruments as such?
No, none at all. I think in modern day time they've added that. But, its origins itself is, very, vocal harmonies and, trying to encapsulate that angelic voice harmony going, It's something you should listen to. It makes sense when you listen to it. You're like, oh, okay.
So what did you grow up learning to play?
Obviously, growing in the church, you end up being in the church, for multiple days at end, multiple hours on end. And what's on stage while your dad is doing, his work is musical instruments. So you tend to just go up on stage, pick up a guitar and, see what the guy who was, doing it on Sunday was doing and see if you can, figure it out. Eventually just started going to the front and trying to see, okay, look, which instrument do I want to pick here out of the lot? And for me, the influential guy who was at my church was a bassist. So naturally I just gravitated towards the bass and I'll just stand in front of him every Sunday. And I think he noticed something in me and he's like, look, if you want to come in for some lessons, come through and we can sit down and I can teach you the basics. And from there, I think it was at age 9, 10, and from there we just took it on and I ran with it. I've been running with it since then.
Ever since.
Yeah.
And here you are in New Zealand. You've been here about 5 years now?
It's going to be 6 years. Yeah, so interesting journey.
So how have you brought those musical influences with you to New Zealand? I mean, was it easy finding people that you wanted to make music with here, or did you end up creating your own crew of sorts? Because now you're playing with musicians like Tabani Gapada, you've got Warren Duncan, you've got people across different genres coming together. Was that an easy process for you, finding people to actually make music with in New Zealand?
One major aspect about gospel is that, you are exposed to different genres of music. the church that we played for, would stretch all the way from rock music, all the way to R&B, all the way to jazz. So it was a natural transition for me. I lived in South Africa for 15 years as well. So with the music that I do with Warren Duncan, which is amapiano, it's more of dance house. I was already quite familiar with that level of music. For the first time, we're adding instrumentation to that music as well, so it's something that we're trying to pioneer, which is pretty cool. And then with Tabani Gapari, he plays Afro jazz, and jazz being the foundation of music was something that I, put a lot of study into as well. And we had similar influences. I've known Tabani since, high school, and we all played in similar jazz bands as well, and took specific influences from the world.
When people talk about South African music or Zimbabwean music, not that I'm trying to conflate the two, there is obviously a porous cultural border between the two nations as well.
100%, yep, definitely.
So in terms of the different genres that one would think of when you think about Zim music, I'm only familiar with is it Singura?
Yeah.
And you've got Afro jazz, which is obviously a big export.
Yes.
You've got Zim dancehall with Killer T and all of these people.
100%, yeah.
And you've got Mbira.
Mbira music, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, yes.
And of course, now you've got amapiano to the mix as well.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of other influences that are creating Zimbabwean music as we know it today,
Yes.
right? So talk me through that. What would you say would be some of the more formative genres of music that pour into what's being made today?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think from an earlier context, from a traditional context, Mbira music is something that is, highly respected in Zimbabwe. Mbira being an instrument itself, it's what you would maybe call in English the thumb piano. So you can hear elements of that in our early music as well, in our traditional music. It's something that, has a connection to our ancestral heritage as well. Its cultural context is quite wide within Zimbabwe itself.
And so those are all single notes, they're not chords?
These are all single. It's a thumb piano, so you can play two notes at the same time as well, which adds to the complexity of playing that instrument. You'll find that these influences from a long time ago, those influences are there today in the form of artists like Jabulani, who is one of the current big artist in Zimbabwe. He adds elements of Mbira as well. And then like you've made mention of Sungura music. Sungura music takes influences from rumba in Congo. They take guitar elements from Tanzania, and they merge that together with our traditional vocals. And the whole concept of Sungura is to tell a story while you play the guitar as well. So very, very complex music, very, very complex rhythms. It's something that, really, if the international world, really understood how complex to play that music is, it would be respected. And, it's something that the pioneers of Sangura have taken and literally run with it. And, they're purists when it comes to that music. So those are the types of influences that, are dominant in Zimbabwe. And like you've made mention as well, Zim dancehall, is quite major in the format that, earlier on when Zimbabwe gained its independence in 1980, we had a massive influence of Bob Marley. In fact, Bob Marley came to our independence ceremony. He held a concert there as well. This is why he has a song called Zimbabwe. If you look at his catalog, he's got a song called Zimbabwe because I think he resonated with it. He resonated with the struggle as well. So it was quite great. And then obviously, reggae and calypso has evolved into dancehall, and then in the 90s, we youth just captured it and they took it and they ran, and hence Zim dancehall has come about now, and it's all about lyrical content and just trying to flow on what you call your rhythm. Yeah.
When it comes to that sort of cultural crossovers, did you ever find yourself at a clash of some sort, growing up with such a huge influence of the church on your life in terms of music and spending so much time with the community, and then you've got influences like, say, Zim dancehall and the more street styles of music as well?
Yeah.
Did you ever find yourself getting uncomfortable, or were you told off for listening to one or the other, or was it something that of any friction? Yeah,
look, I think growing up in Zimbabwe, there were two spectrums, on that end. One would have been, the spectrum that was highly influenced by American music as well, and one that stayed true to the traditional aspect. I sat on the line, being a musician, someone who plays an instrument, you have to have an ability to kind of bridge the two. So I mean, in the 90s, you would know that, R&B and hip hop, American music would have, somewhat taken over. Punk rock was a big element as well. Getting into the 2000s, pop became, something huge. MTV, was now on our TV screens as well. So it was something that was new and something that, kind of swayed me as well. But at the same time, in order to create that level of identity, I always stuck to what I grew up knowing, or what my dad would play, on the records as well, and what used to play when we were going on road trips, kumusha, back to the roots as well. So.
And what was that? What used to play?
So he was, in love with Sungura music. He was in love with Jit music as well. Why I say was, because, he's now a pastor, so so he's let go of that, But he likes the Simon Chimbetu's, the Leonard Dembos, the Oliver Mtukudzis as well. These are cultural legends within Zimbabwe. Even just the mention of their name, it resonates within Zimbabwe as well. This is the music that plays at our traditional ceremonies, at weddings, at celebrations as well. So he was in love with that, and at the time it was just a cassette. So you'll pop that cassette in, it'll run through one side, flip it over to the next side, it'll play, flip it over again, and yeah, we've made it to our destination. But you see, the thing is with Sungura music, most of it, because it's storytelling, a lot of the songs are almost, 7 minutes long, 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long sometimes, They have a dance break, they tell a story, they have an a cappella point, so yeah, it's soon enough when you've gone through the tape, you have reached your destination. Yeah.
Why is Amapiano so big right now?
I think, Southern Africa, or Africa as a whole, was quite hungry for an original genre. You would find that, we didn't really have an original, dance genre. The genre that would have preceded Amapiano would have been Afrobeats, and, it's dominated by West African music, obviously being Nigeria. Before that, major influence on an international level, major influences would have been in Congo in the form of rumba music as well. So Southern Africa was really lacking in that breakthrough genre that, that was required. And then came the rise of Amapiano. With elements of the log drum coming in there, and some, good lyrics, funky lyrics. It's more of an uplifting, fun, let's go have a fun time type, genre of music. And somehow it resonated in the world. And, as dance music, it's got that strong bass line. You can play it in the club, you can play it at a concert, you can play it at a festival, and everyone will just start dancing, I guess. So it was very, very interesting to see how, it went through the international ranks, and it's sitting up there currently. Like, it's been sitting there for a couple of years now.
That's some serious spectrum of styles and influences from Zimbabwe that Jay's taken me through. And he's still staying true to that variety with the sort of musical projects he's gotten involved with in New Zealand.
I've arranged, sets that range from hip hop to jazz to a Christmas concert as well. I've arranged, with artists like Jess B, who's, primarily hip hop. I've arranged with D Matthews, who's Afrobeats as well. And all I try and do is I take those elements that I have learnt or that have influenced me through that music, and I sprinkle it through the music, somewhat trying to create a signature. It's almost trying to put my own, signature writing on the painting. Obviously staying true to what the artist wants to do, but ultimately I just want to be able to, for people to be able to hear a Jabulani arrangement and say, oh, that's definitely him on the guitar there. So, I've carried those influences with me, and I'm fortunate enough to have worked with artists that are appreciative of that as well. So I'm pretty glad to have done that here in New Zealand. Yeah.
I've had a chance to chat with some really high caliber musicians on Back to Basics like Jabulani Moyo, and in the previous 2 episodes, Manjeet Singh and Leandro Vasquez. So I'll be back with the final episode of the podcast where we have the 3 of them in the same studio. So keep up with the podcast and follow us on all your favourite podcast platforms, as well as the RNZ website. Today's episode was mixed by Jeremy Ansell, and my name is Kadambri Raghukumar.